Thank you for joining me today. My name is Brandy McGrath-Kong, and I'm the Director of Member Services here at Sertoma headquarters. With 16 years of experience in nonprofit management, 11 of which are focused specifically on membership, I understand firsthand many of the challenges that our clubs face. Membership is a never-ending process. There are times when it definitely feels like we've tried everything, and perhaps we have. However, membership is also a cycle, which means it's important for us to revisit those old ways to see if they can be revamped to make our work even more successful. In today's session, we will look at how your club can discover where it should be focusing those efforts, on recruitment or on retention. I'll also share 10 strategies and a few best practices you can implement to build a more robust membership program. A strong membership program begins by taking a 360-degree look at what you're working with. You really need to examine the full picture to not only understand your current situation, but also to recognize what you're missing. Let's break this down by considering what I call the membership equation. Essentially, this means that your club's membership program must have 3 key components: recruitment, retention, and engagement. You really need all 3 of these pieces to work well together in order for your club to succeed long term. It's important to note here that recruitment, retention, and engagement work in tandem and feed into one another. You need to have a good engagement strategy to get people involved so that they will want to stay part of your club, thus impacting your retention. Of course, you have to draw them in the first place, which accounts for your recruitment, and having strong engagement and retention can help you discover what strategies work best for initially attracting new members. We will focus primarily on recruitment and retention in today's presentation. However, you can find additional on-demand trainings on engagement and other membership topics in our online training center at members.sertoma.org. Now, of course, no club can do everything all at once. We must find a way to determine what membership development priority we should focus on first. So how do we do that? My best advice is to look at your club's retention rate. A retention rate is the percentage of members you keep over a given time period, often quarterly or annually. We choose this number because it best illustrates how effective our membership program is at keeping members. After all, a retention strategy must be strong or our recruitment efforts are essentially wasted. To find the retention rate, we subtract the number of new members from the number of members at the end of the current period. You will then divide that difference by the number of members at the beginning of your current time period. Finally, multiply that figure by 100 to get your retention rate. So that might sound a little confusing, so let's look at it in terms of real figures. Let's say you end the year with 950 members. During that same year, you added 50 new members. So you will take 950 minus 50 to get 900. We will then divide that 900 by 1,000, which is the number of members you had at the beginning of the year. From there, just multiply by 100 and you'll get the retention rate of 90%. As a rule of thumb, 80% is a great benchmark to work from. Obviously, we want our retention rate to be much higher, but you don't really get into the trouble zone until you dip below that number. So now that we have calculated our retention rate, we can figure out where our priority lies. If your retention rate is low, then your efforts should start with retention first. As you can gather, a low retention rate indicates that there are likely some issues at play within your club, which means that it's important for your membership committee to take a look and take action as soon as possible. We will explore a few ways your club can do that in just a little bit. With a lower retention rate, you are less able to guarantee that any new members you recruit will stick around. However, on the other end of the spectrum, a higher retention rate means that you can be more confident that your new members will stay part of your club. This means that your club is better prepared to focus on recruitment. Let's look at recruitment first. As you know, recruitment is the ongoing process of attracting new members into our organization. Because member turnover is a natural aspect of any nonprofit group, recruitment is an important part of ensuring that our organization will be around for many years to come. In order to not suffer a member loss, we must recruit at least as many new members as we lose each year. To grow, we must recruit more members than we lose. That's not simple by any stretch of the imagination, so let's dive into this a little deeper. Before we get into some tips that you can implement into your club's recruitment program, let's frame the conversation first. It's important that clubs realize that membership is a sales process. Like many commercial industries, nonprofit membership follows a somewhat traditional purchasing life cycle. This cycle consists of 4 steps: awareness, consideration, purchasing, and usage. We learn about an organization, we consider joining, we become a member, and hopefully we utilize that membership. Understanding this model helps us to know what is going on with our potential members as we attempt to recruit them. It illustrates how we need to engage with them at different points throughout their purchasing journey. For instance, we can't ask someone to join without them first knowing who we are. The other half of the recruitment picture is the fluff. Don't discount the fluff. This is the look and the feel, the shiny bits and pieces that draw people into your organization in the first place. It's what sets your club apart from other service organizations in your area. It's also the part that connects people emotionally to your cause. So how do we put these 2 parts together to form our recruitment strategy? Well, it begins with cohesive and frequent messaging aimed at building awareness about your organization. It's what helps us usher future members into the first phase of the purchasing lifecycle we just talked about. According to XYZ University, an engagement and retention consulting company, this is where it's important to get all of your team players on the same page. This especially applies to your volunteers and leaders charged with marketing, branding, and recruitment. These groups must work together to create cohesive messaging at every stage. Now, all this talk about sales is to say, membership recruitment is so much more than just a financial transaction. It's about building those enduring connections that have kept so many of our Sertomans as members for decades. XYZ sums it up best by saying, membership recruitment is about creating long-lasting relationships, engaging your prospects, and proving to them why they should benefit from your membership. Prospecting is another important part of planning recruitment strategy. We have to figure out where we are going to find our potential members. Few organizations are lucky enough to have a steady stream of organic traffic just clamoring to join their ranks. Instead, most nonprofits have to spend some time exploring potential pools of members in search of those who are a good fit with their mission, vision, and goals. Now, like when I said earlier that we can't do everything at once, we also can't reach out to everyone at once. Different messages and methods are better suited for different audiences. To help make this manageable, I'd recommend working on your warmest leads first. These are the people you are most likely to have some sort of existing relationship with. For instance, at the top of our prospecting funnel, we have referrals made by our current members. Word of mouth is one of the strongest marketing tools out there, so it makes sense that our current members would be our biggest recruitment cheerleaders. These referrals come in the form of our family, friends, coworkers, fellow members in other organizations, people we volunteer with, and those we know from church or school. They are the ones most likely to be impacted by our passion for Sertoma or to have an interest in joining something where they can just hang out and volunteer with us. The next step down would be the non-members who have attended our fundraisers and community events. These prospects have seen the work we do firsthand and likely support the same causes. A little more about this one later. Somewhere in the middle, you'll find your former members. This can be a tough audience to sell to at times because they come along with preconceived opinions and perhaps even challenging issues. However, former members also allow us to spend less time on building awareness and more time on meaningful personal connections. Toward the bottom of the prospecting funnel are our cold leads. This would be things like fans on our social media pages or contacting people from purchased mailing lists. These approaches require more time, attention, and usually money. Now let's take a look at a few recruitment strategies. The first strategy is one that we just touched on, member-to-member recruitment. As we noted earlier, word of mouth is one of the strongest marketing tools we have in the membership realm because your current members know best the value of being part of your club. They want to share their story with others and are often willing to go out into the world to tell it. There are a few different ways we can formalize that process to help and even reward them. First, you have your referral programs. Referral programs are typically your longer, ongoing programs that encourage sustainable member-to-member recruitment practices over time. Financial incentives can be a great way to reward your members. For example, your club might offer that for every 5 members you bring in, you receive a free year of membership. Other ideas might be tickets to a special club event or registration at your regional or national convention. You might even offer cash or gift cards outright as a reward for reaching certain recruiting landmarks. Next, your club might put together recruitment events where members volunteer to help spread the word about membership. Of course, that may not work for most clubs right now with gathering guidelines in place, but it's still good to think about what's possible for the future. Perhaps your club will consider a sorority-like rush party or sponsoring a special recruitment reception held prior to or after another event. Many clubs have handled these differently over the years, so our members-only Facebook group could be a good place to seek advice and ideas. Consider offering small incentives to reward volunteers at this event, such as a complimentary meal or an event t-shirt. Finally, you can consider holding a special membership drive. This one can be a challenge to put together, but when done right, it can also be quite successful. Membership drives differ in that they are a one-time event usually stretching over a short period, unlike an ongoing referral program or one-day recruitment event. A membership drive will work best when you have strong goals in place that elicit friendly but competitive activity between members. I'd suggest making prizes a little more significant with this one if you can, especially if you can get them donated from local sponsors and business partners. Our next strategy is to re-engage lapsed members. This is actually one that we've been working on here at headquarters lately. With this approach, you will spend time reaching out to your former members to remind them that you're still there. This one often takes more than one touch point and can rely on a variety of communication methods to be truly effective. But before you do any of that, I'd spend some time doing a little planning by asking yourselves 2 questions. What makes it attractive to rejoin, and what messages will work best? With your first question, think about what has changed since they were last members, and then tout your victories. If the club had been experiencing turmoil when they were last members, talk to them about how things are now going right. Share any new programs, events, or benefits that you think they'd enjoy. You want them to get a picture of what it means to be a Sertoman in your club today. As for what messages work best, this one can depend on what you're working with. For a larger group of people where one-on-one personalized contact feels like it's too much to realistically manage, I like to use a mix of mailed letters and email communications. When a one-on-one conversation is possible, consider having a small team of volunteers who are willing to call and catch up with former members. You can then follow up by mail and email as needed. Now, it's always a good idea to have an attractive offer in place to entice them back in. Membership technology firm Wild Apricot suggests considering things like a membership discount, limited time free access to member benefits, or a free invite to an event. If you decide to opt for a discount, research by Marketing Land found that offers with dollars off versus a percentage discount are 200% more effective. For our third strategy, we have one that hopefully you are already practicing, utilizing your events and fundraisers as a way to also talk to potential members about joining your club. First, you should begin by clearly identifying your non-members. You can do this by giving them a special guest ribbon, printing their name tags on a different color of paper, or simply just putting the word guest right there on the tag. Of course, you can always just identify your members in this way to help make it a little less conspicuous. Either way, you want to just be able to discern the difference so that you can know where your club should focus its efforts. Speaking of which, you need to make sure that you have a volunteer team in place. These members should be ready to engage. You can do this formally by having them serve as greeters at the door or host at your registration table. You can also take a less formal approach by having them work the crowds. Here, it's as simple as walking around and finding your treasured guests to have those important one-on-one conversations. Ask why they're at the event and find a way to connect it back to the work your club does and how it'd be great to have them as a member and get involved. Ewald Consulting reminds us that we also need to include opportunities to join. They suggest things like special pricing, giveaways, or incorporating the difference in non-member registration fees towards membership if someone decides to join. Finally, and most importantly, don't forget to make the ask. We often talk about membership without actually directly asking someone to join. This can be done in a couple of different ways at your event. You might consider having someone like the president or membership chair make a brief pitch on stage. It shouldn't be too long, but must tell them where on site they should go to get signed up. I'd suggest pairing this with making individual asks during those one-on-one conversations we talked about earlier. Even if someone doesn't say yes right away, having that interpersonal communication helps gauge their likeliness to join and leaves the door open for follow-up communication. If you've been around Sertoma for a while, you've likely figured out that we can't be everything to everyone. I know that we all wish that we could, but it's simply not a realistic goal. Instead, you have to figure out what space your club will exist within your community. Essentially, you need to know your niche. So how do we do this? Well, you have to be honest with yourself by looking at what it is your club does and who you're trying to attract. This means figuring out who your target market is and where you can reach them. Prospecting will obviously play a big role in this process. We went over that in detail earlier, so you should already be well acquainted with the steps your club needs to take. However, this isn't the only group that you should be exploring. You should also think about your competitors. Who else does what you do in your community? Are there other service organizations that help or hinder your presence? Put together a list of these clubs and nonprofits to help understand your local market and the availability of potential new members. From there, XYZ University suggests leveraging your competitors. Look at what they're doing, see what's missing, and decide if your club can help fill those gaps. This is a great way to get your name out there more, while also attracting new members and volunteers with an interest in that part of your mission and service program. And our final recruitment strategy is to know your value. This one seems like a no-brainer, right? However, many organizations do not do this especially well. So even if you think that this is something your club is already doing, I urge you to take a look at it again now and on a regular basis. We do this by asking 3 questions. First question, do you know your club's features versus your club's benefits? This is something that many, even professionals, get wrong. Features are the things you offer, likely what most people unknowingly identify as a benefit. Examples might be networking, receiving a magazine, or getting a discount on a local service. The benefits, however, will take a look at those features and explain how they actually benefit your members. It answers the age-old question, what's in it for me? Second question, what makes others talk about you? This helps you answer why your members get excited about Sertoma. Those are things that are likely to matter to them most and the things that they want to share with others. This can help inform your messaging and what programs you should be touting. Final question, what makes your club special? This is all part of the discovery that comes along with what we talked about in knowing your niche. What makes your club stand out in your community? It might not just be the services and programs you provide, however. It can be your reputation of volunteerism, your willingness to always financially support your area when and where you can, the kindness of your members, or your longevity in the community. After all, as XYZ says, no one talks about the ordinary. You want to be the extraordinary. Moving on to retention. Retention is the key to an organization's long-term survival. If we provide enough value to our members, they'll stick around. If we don't, they'll quickly leave. Like recruitment, retention will only be as effective as the priority it's given. Leadership, volunteers, and any paid staff need to be on the same page and in constant communication about ways to best serve your current members. After all, it's easier and less expensive to keep them on board than to try to bring them back later or recruit new members. That is why I suggest using each activity as an opportunity to reinforce why membership is important and how their personal involvement helps the club. You've gotten them there, so make sure to take advantage of it. Before we jump into our 5 retention strategies, let's quickly look at why members leave. Now, there are a million reasons why people choose not to renew, but here are 3 of the most common. According to Modern Marketing Partners, an estimated 37% choose not to renew because of cost-related issues. Oftentimes, this means that someone who previously paid their dues, perhaps an employer, has decided that they will no longer continue to cover it. In those situations, the member typically sees some value, but not enough to pay for it personally. There isn't always a lot you can do to prevent this other than to provide and communicate value. Next, we have the natural loss we incurred due to a change in member circumstances. MMP puts that at about 33%. This means things like a change in employment or moving out of the area can make the membership irrelevant. There isn't really much that can be done about this one either. Simply put, people aren't going to pay for a membership that no longer applies to them. But our last one, that is one that we can do something about. MMP figures that approximately 49% of members leave an organization because they do not engage with it enough. We can overcome this by talking about our value, communicating often, and helping members to discover what their place within the organization will be. Or to put it another way, make sure that your club is something that your members would miss. The first thing to do may be one of the hardest, but you really need to ask for feedback. Be open to honest but constructive criticism. It can be hard to hear what you're doing wrong, especially when you feel like you have personal ownership over something you've worked so hard on. On the other hand, it can also feel quite victorious when you get to hear about what you're doing right. Either way, be open as you seek this feedback because it honestly is the optimal way to improve your club. Now, keep in mind, this isn't just limited to those traditional paper surveys we've all done for years. You can foster well-moderated conversations at a club meeting, organize members into a few smaller focus groups, and even have board members hold one-on-one discussions where you can really delve into the meat of it all. Once you've gathered your feedback, take a look at your results and figure out what you can implement right away. If it's a low-hanging fruit that you can incorporate reasonably, act on it. But not only do you need to make it happen, you also need to share that it happened. Let your members know that you are listening and that their opinions have impacted meaningful change. Last tip on this one. Don't forget about your new members. They are going to provide a fresh perspective and are often less attached to club programs and politics. This audience is also the most at risk for leaving your club. By getting their feedback, modern marketing partners suggest doing this about 6 months in by asking general questions like, what are you trying to get out of your membership? You can help ensure that your club's goals are aligning with those of your members. Next, make sure you are talking about renewals early. People forget. Don't let them. When you're dealing with members individually, it's important that it's more than just a one-time bill. If you bill your members yearly, start talking to members about their renewal at least 90 days out. If it's quarterly, it might be better to just start the reminders a few weeks out. Either way, you have to get it out there if you want to prevent lapses. Finding the right balance can be challenging because you don't want it to be too much. Then again, you can't afford for it to be too little. I'd also encourage you to take a look at your invoices if you're directly billing your members. It might be worth making it a little more personal. More than just a bill. Include a short note from your president that highlights the benefits that come along with renewing your membership and expresses genuine gratitude for their continued support. Those little touches can truly make a difference. Like I said earlier, it's easier to keep people around than to try to bring them back. Our third strategy feeds into a lot of what I've already talked about today. Build a community. Make your club a place people want to stay. Think about this by answering 3 questions. Number 1. What makes the group like-minded? When I say like-minded, I don't mean that they all share the same opinions or beliefs. Rather, like-minded here means that your members are united by a common goal, hopefully your club's mission. In Sertoma's case, that is almost always service-oriented. Building this community with this common set of mission values helps members truly feel like they are part of something that matters. Next, we ask ourselves 2 questions we have considered a few times today. Why did members join in the first place, and what kind of value are they looking for? This gives us the information to serve the community we have built. It allows us to have meaningful conversations, build robust programs, and offer attractive volunteer and leadership opportunities. Connecting those things back to what we found in number 1 helps to make this community picture complete. According to Wild Apricot, connecting activities you're running to a larger cause can make members want to stick around. So, for instance, let's say your club does a walkathon where for every mile they report that they walk, the club will donate 50 cents towards a club goal of $500. Wild Apricot points out that this actually serves the members by allowing them to enjoy an activity they like, respects social distancing guidelines, and still supports a local cause of importance. For the 4th one, let's look at what's going right. Find out what your best member is doing with your club. There's a reason that they stick around, but what is it? Look at their key activities and volunteer roles. If we can replicate their experience for others, we will be able to drive members there. I would also suggest finding ways to use them to market to others if possible. These can be prime candidates for published member profiles, video testimonials, and speaking on your club's behalf at other events in the community. And finally, our 10th and last strategy for today. Make sure that your longtime members aren't sending away your newer members. We always hope that members can work together in harmony and that this issue never arises. However, it is likely an issue that many clubs will face at one point or another. So what does this actually mean? Well, there can be a natural tendency to put our newest volunteers in less attractive roles. This can be because we want to honor those volunteers who've been around for a long time with prime jobs, or maybe we're just filling those unattractive roles that no one ever signs up for. Either way, people want to feel valued, and giving them those roles without finding out if their talents could be better utilized elsewhere is not only doing a disservice to the individual, but also to the club as a whole. People also yearn to be social and seek shared purpose. They want human connection. We face similar issues when we throw our new volunteers into the middle of things with too little training. That's why it's so important to build trust and to provide opportunities for newbies to interact with club vets. Now, when we focus on and incorporate our new members into the fold, we can see some of our longtime members become territorial. They have built and sustained programs for years, so it can be hard to share or even hand over responsibilities. However, when members spend too much time guarding their perceived ground, it can leave a club bogged down with hostility. Dealing with these issues can be difficult, but we must have the hard conversations if we ever hope to overcome it. It might mean telling someone that they are going to have to take a step back or redirecting their efforts to other projects and programs. It's not fun, but it is necessary. The good news is that there are a few things we can do to help circumvent these difficulties. Wild Apricot says that onboarding new members and volunteers so that they understand club programs and procedures can go a long way to getting everyone on the same page. Mentorship programs also help educate and connect the two groups. Before we wrap up, I want to share a few general best practices that I don't want you to forget. First, remember that membership is a very personal decision. We are not only giving of our money in the form of dues, we are also committing to giving our time and financial resources to attend meetings, go to events, participate in fundraisers, volunteer, and so much more. Therefore, it's important to find ways to capitalize on that close connection by personalizing the experience. This can be as simple as personalization in your communications to having your leaders meet with new members. Discover why your members are part of your club, what brought them to join, or what keeps them as a member. Make it matter. Along the same lines of making something matter, make sure your club is providing meaningful benefits. So often, we offer up what we think our members want rather than what they actually need. As a service organization, it's important that we are providing relevant answers to situations and problems in our communities. When we provide something that people are looking for and continue to talk publicly about those things, we can achieve our goal of being relevant. And finally, keep your messaging strong. Perhaps the biggest advice I can provide is to make sure that you are consistently communicating with your members. Frequency is important. Make sure that your social media and website, if you have one, are updated regularly. Meet your publishing deadlines. Include membership messages in everything that you do. Find ways to emphasize how you're meeting your mission. By doing all these little things, you show that your club is strong and that membership matters. This concludes today's presentation. Don't forget you can find additional trainings, informational resources, and tools in the Sertoma Member Center at members.sertoma.org. If you're not already part of our members-only group, I'd also encourage you to join the conversation using the link on your screen. This can be a great place to share news about your club, get answers from other members and headquarters staff, and to exchange ideas in general. Don't forget, your Sertoma staff is here to help. Please feel free to reach out to me by email or on Facebook using the contact information on the screen.